What is up, everyone? Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Tusk top rack for a KTM 350 EXC-F. This is a 2021. Now, the Tusk top rack, they do not list it for a 2021 KTM 350 EXC-F. They list it for a 500 EXC-F, and they even show a video basically of how it looks on the 500 EXC-F. I do not know why they don't list it for the KTM 350 EXC-F 2021 and basically 2022, probably 2020 also, because the subframe is exactly the same on the 350 as the 500. So I'm not sure why they don't want to list it for the KTM 350. So I'm just going to kind of show you here what it looks like on the 350. And I apologize, I did do a full install video on this, but I had an issue where the GoPro was set at the wrong video setting. So when I went to edit it on my cheap little computer, it just plays splotchy and goofy, so I would sit there forever to edit it. So I did not do that, so I'm just going to kind of show it on the bike and maybe run down a few of the steps that I had to do to install it. So let's check it out. Alright, so there it is from the back. The one thing I will mention on this, it lays basically right on the fender. I mean, you could maybe take a piece of paper and slide it through there. I wish it sat up a little bit farther, just so if you were strapping something down, running your bungees around it, that you could get them under there very easily. You can still get them under there, but you got to pull the fender down basically to get them in there. That is kind of sucks. Another thing is, this bike, it sits very tight. I'll show you here. It sits very tight to the side plate. That is touching the side plate. I even had to smash it in a little bit to get it on there. And there's no adjustment on this to get it out. This bracket actually sits, you have the subframe of the bike, you got the rack bracket, and then you have your exhaust tab mounts that go on there. Now, if you look at the other side, there's a good 1/4 of an inch between the plate and the side, so it's not even close over here, which this side contains some bushings in it, probably 1/4 inch thick, that go between the subframe and the bolts of the rack mount bracket. Now, I will show you here what you have to do, and it may be in the Tusk video. They give you little template stickers to put on your lower rear fender. They stick on here, and they go down along, and there's even one that goes down here where the second exhaust tab is. And you have to cut out, it's about 1/4 inch wide, and this is probably 5 inches or so long. You have to cut that out so that the bracket, this is the bracket right here from the Tusk rack, it comes down and it will go up in behind the exhaust mounting tabs. And this, of course, is your subframe right here. And then on this side, it's kind of tough to see because I have some sealant along here, but you have to cut this template. They give you a template for this. This is probably about 3 inches long and a 1/2 inch wide hole that you have to cut into. It kind of is split between your lower fender and your actual upper rear fender right here. And what they tell you in the instructions is they tell you to basically tear down the bike and take this lower fender off. I did not do that. If I had my stinking video up, I'd be able to show you that. I took my airbox cover off, took the side panel off, seat off, and I also come over here and took the side panel off to make it easier. They tell you don't have to take this off, and I don't understand how they would even do it without taking this off. But I took this off also. I put the templates on there, and I used a Dremel with a plastic bit and just got up in here and cut those out very carefully. And I even cut these out on the bike. You just got to be careful that you don't jam the bit against your subframe mounting tab here, but you can do it on the bike. And make sure, I took my exhaust off, so make sure you put a rag up in your mid pipe, so when you're cutting this, shavings don't go in your mid pipe, and put something in your air box too and cover your reeds up. Now, I don't have it off the bike, but how this is here, when you have this panel off, you have your mount from your rack comes down, and Tusk gives you a clamp, basically like a clamshell type clamp that goes over your subframe. You clamp that on, and then this goes onto that, and then you tighten everything up, or at least get it all snugged up, but let it loose. Then your top rack has these countersunk bolts, and then of course a nylock nut that goes on the bottom, a 10 millimeter. Now I will say, this project, it's not simple, especially if you got to take that, if you end up taking that lower fender off, because you'll have to remove your complete top fender, have it out of the way, take that lower fender off. I believe there's maybe 5-6 bolts on that. Take that completely out of there and do it. But I still had, in the way I did it with letting it on, I probably had a good hour and a half to 2 hours if I didn't take a break in putting this rack on. And basically, I believe Pro Moto Billet makes a rack, and I think it mounts very similar. I think it mounts to the exhaust tabs on the subframe, and it also has a clamp on the other side that mounts over the subframe. But that rack is over $300. I believe it's $384, somewhere in that area. This rack is $169.99. Now, if I was going to do it again, this rack is nice, but I would probably go with something like the True North Moto rack, which mounts with bars going on the outside of your side panels and down to the bottom where the subframe meets the actual frame. And I believe you do have to drill one hole on each side down through to get a mount fastened here on the top of the subframe. But their rack is much easier to remove if you don't want it on the bike. This one, it's not that it would take a lot of time, but you would have to, you got your 2 bolts over here you got to take out, and they supply you with longer bolts, Tusk does. So you would have to put your original bolts back in if you take the rack off, and then you would have to come over here, remove both panels here, and then unbolt it from the subframe. And it would take probably a good half hour, even though, because now you know how it goes on, and you went through the pain of putting it on. So I would say probably a half hour to get it off if you wanted to take it off. Because where the time comes in when you're mounting this is getting it cut, the holes cut out of that lower fender, and then you do have some adjustment on this. When I first put it on, it was the space between the seat was off a little bit right here, and it was a little cattywampus as far as sitting level on the bike. So I had to get all the bolts loose and kind of mess around with it until I got them all tightened up and got it to where I was pretty happy with it. And there you can see again how that rack lays on the fender. I'm not real happy with that. It's just tough the whole way up here. It's just tough to get a bungee cord underneath if you want to strap something on there. But it is very solid. I mean, I would not put a ton of weight on it, but good if you got to strap your backpack or have a small box you want to carry a few things in. Or of course, if you're putting your rackless luggage down over the side, you at least have a flat base up here to attach it to. But you just got to keep in mind, it is kind of a pain to put it on. Plus now you have, I mean, these openings go directly into your air box. So that's why I put a little bit of sealant on this one over here to try to seal it up. Now I still have to put, I do have some foam from the inside of the air box kind of shoved over these holes, but I will probably put some high temp silicone, since I'm close to the exhaust pipe here, kind of over these and cover this up so that it's not so exposed. So keep that in mind if you're going to get the Tusk rack. But this is a KTM 350 EXC-F 2021. So the rack does fit on the 350. It was a big question of mine. I went ahead and ordered it and just put it on, and it is on, and it does work. It's just a little bit of a pain getting it on. All right, if you got any questions, put them in the comments down below. I always get to everybody. At least I try. I don't think I miss anybody. I appreciate everybody watching. Like, subscribe, get on your KTM, get outside. See ya.